All right, let's get into it. We're going to talk about one of the most important inventions of the 20th century, but it's one you probably never, ever think about. It's not the computer, it's not the internet, it's just a simple, boring metal box, the shipping container. I know, it sounds a little crazy, right? How could something so basic, well, unimpressive, be the thing that built our entire modern economy? That is the exact question we're going to unpack, because the answer is this incredible story of chaos, an outsider's brilliant idea, and a revolution that almost nobody saw coming. And this slide, right here, shows you everything that was at stake. Before the box, the world was local. Making something in one country and selling it in another was a total nightmare logistically and financially. But after the box, all those walls just came crashing down. Suddenly, the cost of distance practically disappeared, and our world was changed for good. So to really get why this was such a big deal, we have to go back in time, back to the ports of the 1950s, which were, to put it mildly, a complete and utter mess. This was the world before the box. Just look at this process. This is what they called break bulk shipping, and it was ridiculously inefficient. Every single crate, every bag of coffee, every barrel of whatever, it was handled individually, by hand, over and over and over again. It was just this slow, agonizing manual process that gummed up the works at every single port on Earth. Yeah, let that number sink in. Almost 200,000 separate items, every single one loaded and stacked by human hands on one ship for one trip. This wasn't just slow, it was an economic black hole. In fact, a ship would spend about half of its entire journey just sitting in port, waiting to be loaded or unloaded. It was insane. And you have to remember the human cost here. This was just brutal, back-breaking work. I mean, this quote really paints a picture, doesn't it? It gives you a sense of the sheer physical punishment these longshoremen endured day after day to make this broken system run. Okay, so this is the absolute key. You'd think the most expensive part of shipping something would be, sailing it across the ocean. But it wasn't, not even close. Look at this chart. An incredibly 45% of the total cost was just the time wasted at the American port, getting stuff on and off the ship. The port, not the ocean, was the real barrier to global trade. So who's going to solve a problem this huge? A problem where almost half your money is spent before the journey even begins? Well, the answer didn't come from the big shots in the shipping industry. No, it came from a total outsider, a trucker from North Carolina named Malcolm McLean. McLean was, above all else, obsessed with efficiency. He started with one truck in the middle of the Great Depression and just relentlessly found ways to cut costs and move things faster. By the 1950s, he had built a trucking empire by shaving pennies off of every single mile. Now, there's this famous story you might have heard. It's about McLean sitting at a pier for hours, watching the slow process, and having this big aha moment where he realizes you could just lift the whole truck body onto the ship. It's a great story, but it's probably not true. Real innovation is almost never one single flash of insight. It's a long, grinding process. And this was McLean's true genius. He looked at the whole system and realized everyone was thinking about it wrong. The shipping companies thought they were in the ship business. The railroads thought they were in the train business. But McLean saw that none of that mattered. The real business was simply moving freight from point A to point B, period. That fundamental shift in thinking led him to his big breakthrough. The solution wasn't just inventing a box. No, it was inventing an entire system that was built around the box. And these were the 4 pillars that made it all work. Of course, you need the standardized, strong, stackable box. But you also need ships with these metal guides built into the hold, like a giant honeycomb, so the boxes slot in perfectly. Then you need a simple but brilliant little thing called a twist lock to lock them all together. And finally, you need a specialized crane to lift them. You take any one of those 4 pieces away and the whole system just doesn't work. And this right here, this is the wow moment. This is the result. In 1956, when McLean's first container ship sailed, the numbers were just unbelievable. The cost to load 1 ton of cargo went from $5.83 all the way down to just 16 cents. I mean, think about that. This wasn't just a small improvement. It was a total demolition of the old way of doing things. A change this huge didn't just save a bunch of money. It unleashed a tidal wave of consequences, massive, world-altering changes that nobody could have possibly predicted. All of a sudden, old, powerful port cities like New York found their waterfronts were basically useless overnight. New manufacturing hubs popped up all over the world. Companies could now chase cheap labor anywhere, creating the incredibly complex supply chains we have today. This, of course, meant massive job losses for dock workers, but also the creation of new jobs elsewhere. And naturally, it created brand new security problems we've never had to think about before. And this change happened fast. I mean, really fast. What started with a single ship in '56 was basically the global standard just 10 years later. It fueled this massive boom in world trade through the '70s and beyond. And today, the entire global economy runs on over 1.5 million of these boxes, arriving somewhere every single week. But here's the most incredible, most humbling part of this entire story. Nobody saw it coming. Not McLean, not the shipping executives, not the government, nobody. They all thought it was just a clever way to make shipping a little more efficient. No one had a clue that it was about to redraw the economic map of the entire planet. Which kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. This whole story is this amazing reminder that sometimes the most revolutionary technologies are the ones we completely overlook because they seem boring. So it makes you wonder, what's the shipping container of our time? What seemingly dull, practical innovation is happening right now, under our noses, that's quietly getting ready to change our world in ways we can't even begin to imagine?